Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Glad that you're here tonight. Our guest is a fan favorite. It's Andy Bird from Andy Bird Builds. He has over 62,000 subscribers. He is an expert at woodworking, CNC, and how to grow a woodworking business. I think you're going to enjoy him. He'll be here in about 10 minutes. If you're watching this live, enjoy the countdown. If you're watching this on replay, you can watch the countdown or fast forward about 10 minutes, and then Andy will be joining us. Thank you.
Just buying that software isn't what makes the difference. You've got to learn to use that tool, just like you've got to learn to use your high-end Powermatic woodworking tools or Festool for Sedge out there.
So I think you got to kind of leverage all of it.
And I just realized this is a new camera. I didn't take off the protective plastic over it, so I don't know if that was blurry or not for you. Oops.
Oh, hey, look at that.
In your little intro, which was very well put together, as I was sitting backstage and you had all these little clips from your previous guests, there was lots of good information in there. But somebody mentioned, just finding that thing that you love and do the thing you love. Don't make things that you don't like making.
In terms of growing a business, especially a business where you make things, is make the things you want to sell. I want to say Brad Rodriguez said this many times a while back, where it's like, if you don't want to sell cutting boards, stop making cutting boards. If you want to sell tables, make some tables and sell them at a loss if you have to, just to get some tables out there you sold. You attract clients that you can show you've actually made a thing. If you're trying to sell couches, don't keep making coasters telling people you can make couches. Make some couches.
A lot of times, usually when people start out on YouTube or when they're building a YouTube channel, they'll feel like their energies, if it's a scale of 1 to 10, they'll feel like they're at like an 8 or a 9, and they'll be like, woohoo! But then when they actually watch themselves on camera, it's actually more like a 2 or 3.
We do take sponsors, especially as a lot of the smaller channels. And there's two ways that they talk about sponsorship. Sponsorship is someone paying you to do something, and the other one is getting free tools and stuff.
Launch day is my favorite day. That is my favorite day of the week. I just absolutely love launching videos and getting the feedback. So yeah, that's most videos take 4 to 5 full days to make. And I would like to streamline that. I would like to put out more videos in a week.
It's really kind of sad because I didn't get involved even when he was doing the noodle boards. He pretty much did all that. I did everything in the house so that he could stay in the shop a lot.
I am a little conflicted, I think. It initially started off with just sharing like my sewing machines and sewing tips and stuff like that. And then it kind of morphed into sharing the Mastering Mayhem merch items that I was making. And then along the way, I kind of shared some DeWalt tool and obsessions that I've had.
Hats off to Ira. I mean, I can't imagine doing it with small kids. That's a lot of work.
Well, this is a little chaotic, so.
My part really didn't start until Live Edge started. When we started Live Edge, I don't know, I felt different about everything. It felt real to me. I think everything started feeling real to him, after the first few months because he was in the shop. It didn't really feel real to me until Live Edge started. And now I see this as my future too. I don't think I'll be a teacher much longer.
Because I wasn't quite niched enough, but I think because my channel name is I Don't Even Work Here, I think I'm just going to roll with.
I'm going to put out some shorts for stage.
One thing I'm good at probably more than anything else is business and understanding the way businesses work and how to run a business. And I always come from very much the money ball approach. I don't want to hit home runs. I just want to get on base and get on base and get on base.
And I think it's easier for people to look at my story, for example, or anybody like in a similar story and think that was an easy decision. And I can't state how much that was a very hard decision for both my wife and I.
I like the premise of doing a tool review, comparing two tools, and especially if they are popular tools.
You can make the life you want to, you can make the business you want to, whatever it is you want to make.
It wasn't like YouTube's good and this and that. Like I was still pretty new to YouTube and didn't know that was sustainable long term, and so it was a gamble. And I'd worked for a long time to get in the position I was at, and it was a very, very hard decision to basically give that up for potentially the rest of my life.
I never even considered the second channel. I just think all of my content needs to go where I am.
It's a lot of risk and fear, but moving through those deliberately.
So there's a system to it, and you follow that system.
So what have you learned and done to try to change? And so that's the thing I always do is it's a continuous process of evolution.
Scheduling and trying to edit and get a video out, like it's really hard to follow exactly. If you do that and do it consistently, it'll generate views.
Interesting, a lot of times you might see channels or businesses that are frustrated because they're not growing, and you look and you realize that for years or dozens of iterations, you look at the most recent and you go back a few years or a few dozen iterations and there's zero change.
I'd like to see channels evolve into more of like a channel, like we're traditional like TV channel, where you have a channel, but there's different shows within that channel. And, you know, you could have the segment for your shorts or your live streams and your longs, you know, all these different things that people can kind of just pick and choose what they want to watch.
And my goal isn't to get the most views on YouTube. My goal is, you know, to provide confidence, inspiration, and knowledge through entertaining and engaging content. So
what's the next step? What is the next thing? What's going to get you to that next place?
You got to get them to click. You got to get them to watch. I'm terrible at thumbnails. I hate doing them. I would stress so bad over doing them. I've actually hired somebody else to do them now. That's why they look different. I'm not doing them anymore. I took that out of my hands, and I'm stress-free on that part.
Another thing is also onboarding people that are better than me at something. So I have an editor I've been working with for about 2 years now.
One day it just kind of hit me that, okay, I watch a lot of these videos and I obviously find value in them. Why can I not be the person on the other side of the camera, right? Providing the content and the information.
With me being a business-minded individual and trying to make sure that I'm providing for my family, but also always growing.
Our audience smells authenticity, and whether or not you're enjoying what you do very easy.
I'll always be that individual that loves YouTube, that always wants to do extremely detailed videos on how to build.
I feel like the biggest challenge is probably getting yelled at to put on protective.
I'm still focused on my woodworking. I'm focused on trying to get better. I just want to try new things and break barriers and just be the best woodworker I can be, and then document that. I just don't really have the time or desire to really become a student of YouTube. So I'm always playing catch up. I'm always just doing the best I can to get the most out of what we're doing, but I am no student of YouTube, that's for sure.
A good plan of attack is to create a channel on YouTube or an account on YouTube that you don't have any ties to. You've never watched anything on there, and just start watching content you're interested in on that channel. Don't watch the news, or don't click off and start watching, you know, the latest episode or whatever. Just use that account strictly for that, and that'll kind of start drumming up what's being surfaced to people. And then from there, you can kind of...
You know, as far as equipment goes, and I say this adamantly all the time, there is nothing I've ever made that I couldn't make by hand. You know, and I have a skill set that I've developed that I could make it by hand. Does having a CNC make it faster? You bet it does.
The big change that I've seen is that people have gotten even shorter attention spans than normal. So if you are going to start a YouTube channel and you're going to start recording yourself working, keep the pace really, really fast. People get bored super quick, and when they get bored, they either start tapping those arrow keys to speed through the video, or else they'll just drag the slider across the screen so that they can speed through and skip to the end and see what you've built. But if you want to engage them throughout the whole video, you've got to keep the pace really, really fast.
Basically structure your channel so that you generate more views. They watch one video, they're going to watch the next, the next, the next. If you look, and you can tell the difference in I can see it in my analytics. I can see it in the way my channel's structured.
The first thing that I would recommend to anybody, and this of course applies to any niche that you're looking to start a channel for, is before you even take the first steps in terms of researching and all that, which we'll talk about in a second, I would have a really honest conversation with yourself about what you're looking to get out of the channel and what your expectations are.
As a rule of thumb, post-production takes 6 times recorded footage length. Not shoot time, but recorded footage length. So if you record a 5-minute clip. It's going to take you a minimum of 30 minutes to edit that 5-minute clip, even if you only edit down into 30 seconds, because you have to watch it, then you make some notes, and then you watch it again, you make some cuts, and you watch it again, and then when it fits into the timeline, by rule, you're going to see that same clip roughly 6 times.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Let's make Monday nights great. I appreciate you being here. Don't forget, I believe the chat is where it's at. Talk it up with each other. Send messages to me and our guest. Our guest is great tonight. I think you're going to enjoy this. If you do have a question in the chat, put a Q at the beginning. That helps me and Andy find it. I'll try to find them, save them, and ask Andy for you. And we try to get all the questions answered on one of our live streams. If you do have a milestone to share, whether that be an accomplishment on YouTube, or you had a birth in the family, somebody's graduating, somebody's getting out of jail, I don't care. Whatever you want to celebrate, let us know by putting an M at the beginning of your chat and share it with us. Let's don't waste any more time. Let's talk about our guest. Our guest is Andy Bird from Andy Bird Builds, with over 62,000 subscribers and over 10.2 million views on his channel. He is truly an expert on CNC, woodworking business, just all kind of things. He brings a lot of knowledge to his channel and shares it with his viewers. He has a lot of views, and I know we're going to enjoy having him. Andy, welcome to the live stream. How are you?
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you.
Yeah,
that's
great.
You're a fan favorite. That I've been contacted by several people saying, why don't you have Andy on here? And
well, that's humbling. That's awesome.
Yeah, I honestly thought I sent you an invite months ago. I had marked you off my list as one that I had invited, and I got to looking and I couldn't find where I actually ever sent it. So that's whenever I contacted you again, and you responded right away. So I know I didn't send it, and I apologize. I should have had you on here months ago.
Hey, no worries at all. No worries at all. I appreciate you. I was watching the intro sketch, to this, and seeing all the different makers and woodworkers you've had on here, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm honestly, thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, you're in good company, and the nice thing about the woodworking world is everybody is so commendable to each other. People want to support each other and share, and that's why I really appreciate all that will come on the live stream. Some that I've invited, they've turned me down, saying they would rather do a video ahead of time than do a live stream. And right now we're just focused on live streams, but maybe I will talk with them again, and we will communicate and get something set up. Maybe I could do a recording ahead of time. I offered that to a couple of people, and they still turned me down. But we really appreciate you being on here. Where are you from, Andy?
I am from Kentucky. I'm in central Kentucky here. And I'm originally from Michigan. Okay. Originally from Michigan, but I've lived in Kentucky now for 10 years.
So is that long enough that you're a Wildcat fan yet?
Oh, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I'm a big Michigan State fan. That's where I went to college. And so I still bleed green. So. Yeah, you always have to support your alma mater wherever you went. That's right. That's for sure. You, when did you get into woodworking and making? So, for me, I've always, honestly, as far as back as I can think, like even remember like building things as a kid. I remember my grandpa was a builder, and I remember just him throwing some 2x4s down on the ground and giving me some nails and a hammer and going to town. But I would say I really picked it up when, I guess, going forward to purchasing our first house. That was in 2014, and we did a lot of DIY projects, and that's where my tool accumulation started. I convinced my wife that it was more cost effective if we bought the tools and did it ourselves. And so I accumulated, all the basic tools from there. But then in 2018 is when I really jumped into woodworking and, made my first cutting board. And then a couple months after that is when I got my first CNC. So that's 4 years ago already, which is hard to believe, but
wow.
Yeah.
So which CNC was that, Andy?
So I started off with this Shapeoko 3 XXL, and that I honestly had no clue. Like with CNCs, like it was a whole new world to me, and I was just it's one of those things I was really interested in. And I'm sure this will come up again, but I've always had like an entrepreneurial spirit, and like, how can I make money with that? And I saw the potential. And so I skipped a lot of like traditional wood, like what a woodworker would buy, like traditional tools, and got the CNC first, really because I just saw what I could do with it and saw that, I saw the potential and to be able to make money. And at that time I had a full-time job. And so this was just a side hustle.
Yeah. And when did you leave that full-time job?
So I left the full-time job in 2020. Right when the pandemic started. And it was kind of interesting because, obviously that was a weird time for everybody. But I found myself, my employer at the time told me to stay home, but we still got paid. And I was incredibly blessed by that. But I literally used that time to just jump right in. And so it was a 2-month period. Obviously, I had already done the side hustle part-time thing for a couple years. And June 6th, 2020 was my last day of my, I guess, real job. I mean, this is a real job, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, you're your own boss, and you need to be good to yourself so you don't fire your boss, right?
Whew. So yeah. I'm the worst boss to myself. I really am. I need to do better at that for sure.
Yeah. You got to find time for life too. And
yes.
Yes. So whenever you got into woodworking, and I was thinking 2018 is probably a good time to get going, get up to speed, and then the pandemic hit. That probably helped your views on your YouTube channel and everything. How did you get into YouTube? Did you already know about videography, making videos? Was that already a hobby, or did you just say, I need to get into this YouTube business as well?
Yeah. So I've been extremely blessed to have some very well-known YouTubers, I guess, that I stumbled across. So I guess, if you don't mind, I can back up a little bit of a story on how I got into it. So in 2018, 2019, January 2019, so I had just gotten started. I coached basketball and little like 3rd through 5th graders. And it was something my friend and I did, and it was a lot of fun. Well, this is kind of the Cliff Notes version, but I coached Bob Claggett's son and daughter on my team. So if anybody's unfamiliar with Bob, that is Bob from I Like to Make Stuff. And I actually met his wife first, and then his wife introduced us together. And Bob has really become a mentor to me. And I had zero idea of YouTube at that point. And I didn't even know that, you know, a prominent maker YouTube lived in, you know, near me. And so completely like just cross paths, perfect timing. I had started woodworking, and I was making, cut my first cutting board and different projects like that just around the house. And we still have those projects. It's fun to get them out. But so yeah, it was just a collision course, and I continued with the CNC, and it's just like everybody, you know, things evolve. And so in 2000, if you go on my YouTube channel, and it looks and you see when I started it, it's actually November of 2019. And then I didn't post my first video though until like February of 2020. I think February 2020. So you can kind of see the timeline of how things evolved. But that's how I became aware of YouTube, and that you could make a living off YouTube. Like, it was completely off my radar before that. Never shot a video before. And I just jumped in.
Now, how have you liked the YouTube experience and business compared to the woodworking business?
Oh, well, I really, so I think for me, it comes down to what I like, you know, and I really like making videos. That's something I like to do. I probably, now that I kind of discovered it, it's probably something I would do even if I wasn't, you know, if I stopped making YouTube videos like for work. I did something I would do for fun. I like that aspect of it, but I also like the making and building of things, and I like that creative process, right? I guess it's two creative processes, just kind of showing themselves in different ways. But for a long time, I really struggled with that. I felt like I couldn't do both. And honestly, if you look at my content, my videos over time, I didn't start with CNC. I started with DIY projects, and you'll see in 2021, so last year, a little over a year now, is when I made that official switch from kind of DIY content, occasional CNC projects, to CNC business topics. But that's always been a battle for me. I like making things, and I like the YouTube side too. So
yeah, the journey you're describing to me takes you from your youth, when a couple of 2x4s was put in front of you, through the continued interest building until you really got into woodworking in 2018, to fortunately meeting the right contacts by meeting Bob. I mean, what a great coincidence. Yeah. And then that led you right into, let me go ahead and take a business that I'm already building and add the YouTube component. You were able to work out migrating out of your job during the pandemic at just the right time, whenever the pandemic was so key to so many makers really growing fast. And so timing sounds like it's really been on your side, but there's got to be some heartburn in there. There's got to be some rough spots where you had to push through. And I know it couldn't have been an easy decision to say, I'm going to leave the workforce behind and just, I'm going to go make it as my own business.
Yeah, I often tell people, and this isn't to scare anybody, this isn't any fear mongering or anything, but I honestly think you have to be a little crazy to call yourself a YouTuber. You know, there's a ton of work. If I looked back, and again, this is any YouTuber out there that has had success, especially sustained like growth over time, not making it overnight or anything like that, because those are like, just those happen, but it's almost like lightning in a bottle, right? But those people that have put in and have that sustained success, they put in so much work. And I really, there is a huge disconnect, right? The viewer doesn't realize how much work that goes into a video. But if you looked back, if I looked back and counted all the hours that I put into YouTube, and to this point, what I've returned out of it, let's say I've been 2.5 years, you would be scratching your head and you'd be like, Andy, what are you doing? Because although there is, there's a lot of monetary opportunities, it's kind of, I explain it as like a spaceship. It takes so much energy. You're fighting gravity to get it off the ground, and like so much energy. And when you think it takes that much energy, it takes more energy. And I've ran into that wall several times. Like I've made 134 videos now. And again, starting from with no videographer, video experience, no YouTube experience, back in 2018, no CNC experience, no woodworking experience. What I did have though was I had a little bit of business experience, and I've had a ton of grit and determination, and just holding myself. I might not be putting out the greatest content, especially at the beginning. It wasn't great, but just holding myself to, I'm going to put out a video a week, no matter what. And it doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, that is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get better every single time. And it's just, you do hit these walls, but looking back on it, I've enjoyed it. I've had fun. And I really think that my best years are still ahead of me. So that's kind of how I push through those things. Yeah.
I believe you. I believe your best years are still ahead of you, and having to have that grit, as you said, builds that character and builds up that stamina. So your vision is not in the short term. It's not how do I survive until payday. It's how do I thrive over the upcoming decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that perspective. Now, whenever you were doing more project videos, and you made that transition, did you make that transition because you saw the way viewers were accepting certain videos, or did you follow a passion? Why did you pivot that a little bit?
Yeah, so it actually, so up into that point, basically the CNC business was, and it still is, but it was an extreme necessity. Like it was supporting, so like my CNC business and my woodworking was supporting what I was doing on YouTube, right? That's how I justified it. But to answer your question directly, it started with a conversation I had with a friend, and he told me I was in that moment where a lot of people are like, my DIY videos, I'm putting so much time into them, so much money into them, into the projects, and I just wasn't really seeing the traction that I wanted to. And this was a year in, so a little over a year in. So this was right around 60 videos. So I had done 60 videos, and I was kind of like just figuring out, trying to figure out my place. Like, if it's not in this DIY thing, then where should it be? And so my friend Josh told me that he said there are 100 other guys on YouTube with beards doing the same exact thing that you're doing. What makes you any different? And although that, sounds obvious, sometimes it takes someone to say that, and you're like, he's right. So I had shared a couple. So combine that with, I shared a couple, how I made money with my Shapeoko videos, and they had done really well. And so combining those two things together, I was like, well, maybe the CNC business topic, or, CNC woodworking is it's kind of my competitive advantage. Like, I always think of like not that we're competing as makers, but like, what is our personal advantage? Like, what are we good at? Or what do we offer that's different than everyone else? And that's a process to find what that actually is. And it's kind of a crossroad between, okay, what I like to do, but on YouTube, what other people like to know or like to watch. And so CNC business is where I found my spot.
Yeah, that it makes sense to me. I see on here, Damon Barber, the Sawdust Shop, says I'm not shaving my beard. So I tell you what, if this video tonight gets 100,000 views, I'll shave mine. How about that?
Oh, you heard it here.
Yeah, 100,000. You can see what's really under this mess.
Oh man.
Now it's I'd hate to be pulling against my video if it got up.
Yeah.
There are a few questions, and I'm kind of hogging all of the questions to myself. So let me get one or two out here. Mighty Sawdust says, so I came across the MakerMade M2. What's your take on it? It's basically that vertical CNC machine.
I don't know much about this. I think I've heard of it. I don't know if I've seen a picture. So I can't speak much to it, but it's something I'll have to look into.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, CNC is one of those things that I think a lot of woodworkers are interested in. Those who are challenged with computers might be hesitant, and there's a cost factor and a floor space factor. But on your channel, you talk about, in some of your videos, giving guidance on how to select, how to get into the CNC market. Now, I think people should go watch that on your channel, but do you have any high level clues to tell them tonight that they should look for and consider before they buy?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a cost factor to getting into CNCs. There's the long mill, that costs, I think, $1,200. None of these are sponsored. I'm just off the top of my head. I think the long mill is the first place if you wanted to make things to sell repetitively, like more than a hobby. The long mill is the lowest I would go, and then you can go all the way up to, a shop bot, or something like that. That's $100,000. So I have a lot of conversations about this with people. I love having this conversation. So 10 years ago, the power of CNC, it wasn't accessible to have a CNC in your basement or your garage, right? And that's 2012, which is hard to believe. It seems like yesterday, but the cost versus what you're getting, and I'll preface this, that it is expensive to people. I'm not saying it's not, but what you're getting in return, that investment is very, very little, in my experience. The opportunity that you have, yes, there's a learning curve, but there is with anything. But to have a mini manufacturing machine in your garage for, $1,500, $2,500, $3,000, depending on the machine that you get. Like, that is crazy. And the opportunity that comes with that blows my mind still to this day. And that's why I've talked so much about it, because I don't know, it's just so exciting that that technology it's been around for a long time, but it was only in an industrial setting. But now to be able to have a mini manufacturing plant in your garage, it just blows my mind. So that's one thing that I would tell people when you're looking at it. The main thing that I see is there's a ton of opportunity in CNC and making things and selling them and customizing things and designing your own things. I mean, it's just endless. But I do see a lot of people and hear a lot of people get discouraged. There are a lot of desktop CNC machines sitting in garages in this country, in the world, that don't get used anymore. And that, I don't know, this sounds crazy, but that's a shame, like, I think it's important to realize there's a learning curve, but it's completely doable. And I honestly think any woodworker out there can operate and use a CNC machine.
Yeah, that's encouraging for those that are maybe intimidated. I've got a question here from Sandy, and what she's saying is, she's not completely sold on a laser or CNC yet. Give me a sales pitch. So I know you just said some things. It's like having a mini manufacturer.
Yeah.
And I think repeatability and so forth. But what sales pitch would you give Sandy from McKenzie Lumber Mill?
Oh man, I'm not a salesman, but from my own experience, so I think of a lot of so it depends what you make. So there's a lot of different directions you can go with this. But if you want to sell more items, say you make cutting boards. This is just an example. Say, McKenzie, you make cutting boards, and you make beautiful cutting boards. One of the things you can do to make them sell better and sell more of them is by customizing them. Whether that is a laser engraver, engraving someone's last name on it in the bottom right hand corner, whether that's putting a quote or a CNC router. You could, I know a couple guys that do epoxy logos. So they'll make a beautiful, and a lot of these boards aren't cut on, right? But they'll make a beautiful, for a restaurant that has a multicolored logo inlaid into a beautiful cutting board. So what I would say is the versatility that it brings to your products and the sellability, it puts you above the rest of the crowd. I talk a lot about on my channel about matching the best-selling products. You match, and this is not just woodworking. This is kind of business across the board. But the best-selling products are ones where you match them and meet the needs of your audience, and you solve a problem, or you make them feel something, or you help them remember something. And so I think adding a CNC where you could add all those customizations and creativity really just it helps your product connect more with your audience.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's so many advantages to a CNC. also have watched, our friend Matt over at 731, who has talked about the good and bad of CNC and how a lot of people, I think, have the misconception that you can set it up and just walk away and forget about it. And I think that might be a dangerous thing, especially when you're brand new with it.
Yeah.
Where is your comfort level whenever you lock it in and you press go? How's your comfortability to walk away from it?
So I don't ever leave the shop when the CNC is running. I don't stand there and watch it. If I'm doing something I've already cut before. If it's the first time that I've made this thing, then I usually watch it all the way through. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not safe to walk away and leave the room. I would say being in the same room, sometimes I'll run upstairs and go to the restroom real quick if everything is, good, but I have the door open and I can listen to it. But I never get further away than the same room. Well, what you said about a misconception about setting it and forgetting it, like I've taken it upon myself. No one has told me this, but I've taken it upon myself to try to defeat this misconception, because there is this misconception out there that you buy a CNC, you put a piece of wood on it, it's a robot, so it does its thing and spits out whatever. You don't have to do anything. It just you hit go and out pops a catch-all tray or something like that, and then you take a picture of it with your phone and you post it on Etsy and you're a millionaire. And it couldn't be further from the truth. So I've actually made a video, the reality of CNC. I'm trying to paint a realistic picture of what to expect with CNC. And again, no one's fighting this war with me. I just have taken it upon myself to kind of defeat that. So.
Yep. You are becoming a mentor to a lot of people interested in CNC. Let's see. Dusty Trails Wood Workshop says, what are some good programs for designing your images vectors to send over to your CNC programs?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different software out there. I started with Carbide Create, which is free. They started locking down some of the features recently just because of misuse stuff. But anyways, it's still a free program. And that's where I've kind of done all my CAD work, my design. And then you can actually do your CAM work in there as well, which that's setting up all your tool paths and your tools. And then you save that as a file and send it to your CNC. Some of the other ones I've used is Fusion 360. Fusion is a very, very, very steep learning curve. Not scaring anybody at all. It's completely doable, but it's extremely powerful software. And so I've used that for like 3D stuff or 3D modeling, like true 3D modeling, not 2D stuff. And then I just started using Vectric software, and I can't speak too much about it yet because I've used it for about 2 weeks, but what I've used so far, it's really easy. It's streamlined, gets to the point. There's not a lot of fluff with it. Similar to Carbide Create. And yeah, so I've kind of bounced around with softwares, but it really just depends on your comfortability, but a great place to start. I know we're talking about starting. Start with Carbide Create. It's the simplest and gets the job done.
Let me ask you a question, kind of trailing on that. As a woodworking business, one of the things that I see online, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, and even comments on YouTube, is people trying to figure out how to price their products that they're selling. And a lot of times that price comes to, materials times 1.5 or times 2, plus the number of hours you expect to work on it times a certain dollar amount. But whenever you have machinery like a CNC that you've spent a lot of money on, how do you factor that into your price?
This is a great question. So there are many different ways, as you know, just in general woodworking, there are a lot of different ways to come to a price on your work. With CNC woodworking, I've seen people charge up to $1 a minute. So if something's going to take an hour to carve, they charge $60. I've seen 50 cents a minute. I've seen a lot of different things. So what I like to do, and this is what I've come to the conclusion with, because I've bounced around different formulas and that different things. So what I like to do is I like to take my materials, figure out my material cost, figure out my labor cost. So when I'm actively working on a project, so if I'm setting up or if I'm designing or if I'm sanding or applying finish, those types of things, I figure out that time. And then I figure out my machine time separately. And I'm still working through this, but one way to do it, again, many ways to do it, but what I've determined that for me is if I buy a $3,000 CNC machine and I expect to use that, I did this problem today off the top of my head, so I'm not doing this off the top of my head. But basically you take what your machine cost, take how long you want to take to recoup that cost. So if you want to have your machine completely paid off, or to have that investment returned to you in a year, figure out how many hours roughly you want to run that CNC in a year, and you can do that by breaking it down per week. So if you say, okay, I want to do 5 hours a week, times that by 52 weeks, that's 260. Don't hold me to my math, but $260. So you take 3,000, divide it by the 260 hours of use, and that comes out to like $13 an hour, which doesn't seem like much, but that is the base, the absolute base, just to recoup your investment. Now that doesn't count so anyways, moving forward, so we have our material, we have our labor cost, the machine labor cost, and then times that all by 1.5. That 1.5 is going to cover our overhead expenses. It's going to cover our business profits. And with all of those things, all of your bases are covered. Now, if you want to make more profit, you can always times it by 1.7, 1.8, 2, or if your overhead costs are really high, you can change that multiplier. But that is what I recommend at a very base, stripped down level, easy to understand.
Nice. I know that that explanation itself brought some great value to people. It helped me out. I appreciate that.
Good. Yeah, I thought that hasn't come like naturally. That's been a trial and error process.
Yeah, I bet. Let me let you know that I put in the chat a question for all our viewers to answer tonight. And that was basically, were you already subscribed to Andy before tonight? And I think ask everybody to let us know if they know how long they've been subscribed to let us know in the chat. But if I go over here, And of course, my screen is recycling now.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes.
Of course.
But I will look up the results. Well, while that is going, let me get you another question here from one of our viewers.
For sure.
Wow. My screen is doing funny things, so if I lose you, forgive me.
We're 50 minutes in, so.
So Dusty Trails says, how do you go about telling your customers the difference between Etsy bought images and vectors versus custom image and trace as far as price and work involved? Yeah, you got to build that value with customers, right?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. So basically, we're the difference between buying something off Etsy and making it yourself, right? That's the way I take that, and telling your customers the difference. Yeah, I think you can. Anything that's more custom should cost more. One, you have more time into it. Two, I'm assuming that the artwork will look more custom, will look different. I think so. The value is should be obvious to the customer, but a lot of times, and I've ran into this a lot. Even if it's obvious to you and obvious to the customer, that doesn't mean that they value it the same way as you. And so you need to figure out either one, how to convey that value to them in a way that they'll understand, or two, some customers just aren't good customers, and it's a case-by-case basis. But sometimes it's okay to move. If someone doesn't value your work, it's okay to move along and wait for the next one.
Yeah, I agree with that. So when asking our viewers if they were already subscribed, 84% of 19 answered say they were already subscribed. So my next question to the viewers is, that other 16%, you need to go subscribe. Sandy put the link in the chat. Thank you, Sandy. So you can go get subscribed over there.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
AC Nailed It says, speaking of mentors, you're a mentor to a lot of new CNC users for sure, Andy. I agree with that.
That's fantastic. I actually met him this past weekend at the Louisville Maker Fair.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So I appreciate that. Got to talk to him a little bit. Very cool.
Yeah, awesome. It's always nice whenever we can connect.
Yeah.
Dusty Trails Workshop says, for the ones just about to take the leap, what are things you should invest into getting right away? Spoil board, drag chain, calipers. I think you have videos on this, right?
Yeah, I have some videos that I don't know if I have anything directly on this, answering this directly. It'd probably be a good idea to have a video like that. But it depends what CNC you buy and what kit comes with it. So like the One Infinity is a popular CNC, and I know that you have to source the drag chain separately, and a couple different things. Like you have to do the spoil board, the waste board yourself. If you buy something like the Shapeoko, and I know from my personal experience, everything comes with that. So I'm getting the Shapeoko 3 mixed up with the 4. So in the 4, like the Shapeoko Pro, literally everything comes in that kit that you need. So including the spoil board, including the drag chain, software, everything. So really just pay attention to what you're buying, and calipers are good to have. Work holding is a big thing. figuring out like what clamps you're going to use, or if you're going to use double-sided tape. That's something that a lot of people overlook. Yeah, so hope that helps.
Very good. The Sandy from McKenzie Lumber Mill again says, do you like using cedar, pine, or poplar? Or do you like hardwoods? What's your favorite?
Depends on the project, right? But I'm a big hardwood fan. So I've used a lot of walnut on the CNC. I'm using a lot of cherry right now because that's what I have. But the three main ones that I've used on the CNC are, I've cut more walnut than anything, but I've done a lot of maple too, and cherry. But something like, so cedar is really soft. I've done some things with cedar, but it's really soft. I don't touch pine just because of the sap usually. Maybe I'll run a prototype in it, but I really don't make much out of pine. And yeah, so if you're V carving, for example, on a CNC, using a tight grained wood is my favorite. You get less blowout that way. So like white oak, for example, versus poplar, you're going to get better results from the white oak than you are the poplar. But just some different scenarios where my favorite is.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to do more with hardwoods, so that'd be great. And I know Sandy from McKenzie Lumber Mill. If you come from a lumber mill and produce as much hardwoods as they do, I'm sure.
Yeah, and hardwoods are expensive, right? And I get it. I try to buy them in bulk when I find a good deal. And so I have a shed out back that I just have where I'll buy a bunch at one time. And then if, like, for the business side of things, I usually go to a wholesale dealer and I buy specifically what I need. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I feel like I accidentally removed somebody's question from the favorite. So if I missed your question, please resubmit it here in the next minute or two so we can get to it. Damon Barber is trying to deflect to another channel's topic, but how do you feel about green doors?
I feel like I'm missing something here.
So I believe what Damon is referencing is on 731 Woodworks with Matt naming. They have a green door that she wants to get rid of, and Matt wants to keep it painted green. And it's been a long-running joke on the live stream, people trying to convince them to stick with the green, save the green door.
I think I do remember that now when I was there, because I visited them in June. Great, Matt and Amy. I mean, as you know from the live stream and their videos, great people, but they were so hospitable to me that day. It was a true blessing to stop by and see them. But sorry, Matt, but you got to get rid of that door. You don't need it. I mean, I'm just not a fan of a green door,
All right.
He's probably going to text me and say, "Hey, how dare you?"
Yeah, it's sometimes he's on here and sometimes he watches it on replay, so maybe he'll comment on that.
Great guy.
Yeah, Matt's a good guy. He was our first guest ever whenever this channel started.
Very cool.
I need to talk to him, try to get him in here at around the 1 year mark, see if he'll do that. So let me ask you about this. And this is to our audience. Did you know that Andy has a video that's got more than 6.8 million views?
I do.
Whenever you made that video, it's a good video.
That's debatable.
It's got a good thumbnail.
A great thumbnail.
It's intriguing.
Yes.
It wants to draw you in.
Yes.
And so whenever you were doing that project and making that video, did you have any clue how successful it was going to be?
Nope. No, I didn't. My wife actually told me, don't do that. That's a dumb idea. And no idea whatsoever. So the story on that video, and I said that earlier, I said that my DIY content wasn't getting any traction. Outside of that video, they weren't getting any traction. Obviously, if I had that, and I tried to replicate that success, I really did, and it didn't work. So yeah, I mean, I experienced what it meant to go viral, and yeah, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but I honestly think it might have hurt my channel more than it helped it. Because of, from the audience perspective, like I gained a lot of subscribers from that, and which was great. But what happened, and we're getting into YouTube weeds here, but what
we
happened,
like YouTube weeds.
What happened is I gained a lot of followers, and then a couple months, or I would say 6 months later, when I switched to CNC topics, those people necessarily weren't interested in the CNC stuff. But then again, they weren't watching my other DIY stuff either. So what happened is so how YouTube works, right? They send your video out to your most loyal fans first, your subscriber base, but the ones that are most likely to watch your video. And then they use those user signals and all those data points to decide whether to bury the video and no one will ever see it ever again. That's an exaggeration, or to surface it to another user group or another group of people. And so that's what they do, is sample. And if it keeps bringing back positive signals, they'll keep surfacing it. So that's in a nutshell. So what I had was I had a lot of uninterested people in that group. So they weren't giving positive signals to YouTube. And so I really struggled for a long time. I think it set my channel back. I don't know. I know it set it back because for a long time, it was a big struggle to kind of get over that hump. Like I was posting videos and we would see that I don't get my hand on the screen here. It would go up and then it would just flatline, right? But I'm thankful that I had 6.8 million views. Great thumbnail. Everybody asked me, what's the success to that thumbnail or to that video? It's the thumbnail. It's the title. The video, in my opinion, is junk. And yeah, that's the story. That's the story of that. Here's another fact that a lot of people don't know, is that video sat there for 50 days and took off after 50 days.
Oh, wow.
I can show you the graph where it kind of was going up just a little bit, right? And then just a wall just went. Yep. Absolutely crazy. So.
Yeah. Whenever you were talking about the algorithm, I was thinking about some videos I've seen from vidIQ where they were talking that going viral can really hurt your channel. And it's for the same reasons you were talking about. You are attracting the wrong audience if that video doesn't completely align with what the direction you want to take your channel.
Yep.
And although that video could be considered woodworking adjacent, it's really home improvement type video, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's something unusual that you don't see a lot of with the lights, but it pulled in I would imagine it pulled in a crowd that, like you said, they don't care about CNC, and they probably don't have a lot of other woodworking projects. You know, they just want, some of those viewers just want things to improve their house.
Yeah.
So it's tough whenever that happens, but it's great that you get the boost in views, the you know, the subscribers that you do find that are really interested in your other content. But then it's a struggle with the algorithm.
Yeah. So to contrast that, this summer, about 3 or 4 months ago now, I did a lot of people have done this, but I did the cheapest CNC router on Amazon and the cheapest CNC engraver on Amazon. And again, my whole mission, I don't know if I even shared this, but my whole mission, kind of my mission statement, is introducing as many people as possible to the world of CNC and helping them monetize it. And so the cheapest CNC routers do that. You know, it's introducing to a whole new audience, getting them into my channel that what's possible, right? So I'm much more proud and much more excited, and it was much more beneficial that the CNC router video, the cheapest CNC router on Amazon, is almost at 500,000 views. That is much more significant than the 7 million views of people that are just kind of you know. So yeah, that's exciting.
That's a great point. Now, for anybody who's thinking about starting a woodworking business or refining, developing your sales and so forth, if you're interested in that and CNC, make sure to watch Andy's videos, how he made his first $10,000 with the CNC and his next 10,000. I forget how far that series went, but good stuff that can help you along on that journey. That is great. Let me get to the next question here. What's your milling process? You use planer, joiner?
So I use planer heavily, and I actually joiner was the last tool that I added to my shop. I didn't have a joiner for over 3 years. It was like 3.5 years. And so my exact process was buying rough cut lumber. And so nothing, I mean, it was still good quality, but it was rough sawn, right? And I would use, if it was really bad, I'd use a straight edge jig on my table saw. But a lot of times I would just, since it's on the CNC most of the time, I'm not making furniture or anything, the edges don't have to be entirely straight. You just want to make sure it's flat. So I would use the planer for that, and if I had to get out the sled for the planer, I would do that as well. But that's pretty much it. And then I always cut for the CNC. I always cut all my material. If I'm doing a big like wholesale order, which I've talked about that on my channel, I make sure I cut all my stock to the same exact dimensions, because then everything is super repeatable, and you don't have to like mess with different widths and change your layouts and in your CAD software, and it's really just kind of rinse and repeat. But yeah, that's pretty much my milling process.
Awesome. Yeah, let me switch gears on you again. Go back to that YouTube subject.
Yeah.
So, well, before we get to that, I got another question. Whoops, that's not it. Damon says, how are your fingers doing, Andy?
They're doing good. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So if you don't know, I had a table saw accident back in 2021. I'm looking at the date here because all these years blend together, right? So it's been about 1.5 years. I had a rigid job site saw, and I was cutting this face trim for these built-in cabinets, or this built-in closet build for my son's nursery. And So just really thin but repeatable strips, like same cuts, bigger board, but I was cutting the same strips, and I just got complacent, and so I pushed through, and I was using a push stick. I should have been using 2 push sticks. I pushed through, and then not even thinking about it, I reached for the cutoff and stuck my hand right in the blade. But so if you didn't know that story, there is a video that shows it, and but they're doing well. Like I'm extremely. Let me see if I can get them up here. They're a little crooked, but I've got movement in them. I'm doing good. So, yeah. To have your fingers and said that you touched a saw blade, I'm one lucky man. So, incredibly thankful for that. But it wakes you up. It makes you think. I always tell. I'm going to take this opportunity. Take your saw seriously. Like if you are, especially if you're the person that has about 2 to 3 to 4 years of experience operating tools, it's really easy to get comfortable and complacent and feel like that saw can't bite you, and that's exactly when it'll happen. So take my word for it. If you think it won't happen to you, that's when you're in the most danger. So those things are serious. It opened my eyes for sure. So,
well, we haven't been doing these live stream interviews a year yet. We just started in December, and I know there's at least 3 of our guests that have had accidents with the table saw. And whether it be losing part of a finger, having thumb eaten up, or having, like you, having to relearn those movements, right?
Yeah. So for me, I had 22 stitches, and I didn't have to have surgery, but I got into the bone, and I took out, so the joint, your last joint, like right by your fingernail, I took out like half of that joint on my pointer finger and my index finger. And so I don't have a lot of stability there. So if I hit it the wrong way or something, like it just moves that direction. But I went to physical therapy for 2 months to get my range of motion back. And I still have numbness. They say when you cut those nerves, an excellent recovery is 60% of your feeling back. Like that's considered excellent. Yeah. So, and that's for the rest of your life. So, yeah, it's man, it happens quick. Obviously, it messed with me. It messed with me mentally for a long time because, like, I didn't consciously make that decision. Right. That was something that I subconsciously did. You can say a bad habit. You can say, you can say whatever, but it's like, then you start second guessing yourself. Like, am I going to touch another blade? So,
right. Yeah. There's, it happens to people. Some people online really are negative about it and say, I've been in construction for 40 years and never, cut a body part, but all it takes is a moment. So whether you're on year 3 or year 50, it could happen.
Yep.
So just a good reminder for us to all be safe. So what I was going to say is we are, of course, woodworking YouTubers. So let's talk about YouTube just a moment. Mm-hmm. If you're giving yourself advice whenever you first started the YouTube channel, mm-hmm. things that you wish you knew that you know now, what would you have told yourself?
I would have told myself that thumbnails and titles are more important than the content itself. I because you can have the greatest film, but have a bad thumbnail and a bad title. What I mean by bad is it might be visually appealing, like, ooh, like that's part of it, but it's not intriguing, doesn't make someone wonder what happens, or he made this video for me. I've got to watch this. So that's what your titles and thumbnails should do. And then you can focus on your content. But if they don't ever click on a thumbnail, if they don't ever click on a video, then you could have the greatest video ever, and it doesn't matter because no one will ever see it. So.
Yeah, I think about the times that I've had my phone and scrolling through looking for a video to watch and scroll past one and have a question in my mind about that one and scroll back down, scroll back up to it. That's the kind of thumbnail and titles I want to learn how to create. The ones that make people think, oh, I got to watch that. I got to know the answer, what happened. And,
exactly.
And that's a good challenge.
I struggle a little bit because I want my thumbnails to accurately represent what's in the video. And that's important because you don't want to, the opposite, the extreme is clickbait. And if they click on your video, that's great. They're just going to abandon your video if it has nothing to do with the thumbnail, right? So you have, whatever you promise in the thumbnail and in the title, you have to deliver on in your video.
Absolutely.
But it's okay to, it's all about, I really struggle with this, because I'm kind of I'm a literal person. Like, this is what it is. Like, whether you like it or not, like, this is what it is. And that just doesn't work with thumbnails. Like, so taking a part of your video, and whether you tease it or before and afters work really well. People like to see transformation. The other thing I would say is the other thing I would say to myself back when I started is your title and your thumbnails. Like, if you write like this is obviously a very lame example, but in your thumbnail it says how to run a CNC. It's not a good idea just to repeat that in the title. Like, your title shouldn't be how to run a CNC. So the way I like to think about it is and this is how I structure all my videos. And I'm continually trying to improve this, but the thumbnail is my billboard. That's what people see. That's what I need it to get someone's attention, and I need it to build some tension, and they need resolution to that tension. Like, I wonder why. Like, I got to figure out why. So, and then a viewer is going to move to the title, or sometimes they'll move to the bottom right and they'll see how long your video is. I'm thinking about myself here, right? Like, if I see a thumbnail that I really like, but it's a 40-minute video, I'm probably not clicking on it. Unless it's something I'm really, really passionate about.
Right.
But then I move to the title, and the title should be a continuation of your thumbnail, not like a copy of it. It should further lead them down that idea of intrigue, and to kind of further that tension. And I get a lot of my stuff from video creators with Tim Schmoyer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you listen to his stuff, his stuff is a lot of stuff that he says. These aren't my original ideas. But then I focus on the hook of my videos. So it's always thumbnail, title, and hook. And the hook is either further carrying out that tension or intrigue, but they've got to stick around to get that resolved. And so that's what I try to do. It's a lot easier said than done.
Sure. Yeah.
But that is my thought process.
Yeah, as we improve our thumbnails, titles, try to build a hook and a story into our videos. It sounds like you should be able to do it every time, but it's not easy,
right?
And for me personally, whenever I first got started with YouTube, I mean, really watching YouTube, there were certain things I want to do. Like I wanted to know how to do X, Y, Z. Well, it was okay if the title says how to do X, Y, Z, but something else out there needed to be more intriguing to lure me in if it wasn't directly what I was looking for. I think we have have one question, and I think this is about your accident with the table saw. Do you know the difference between a push stick and a push pad? Push pad is what you need.
So for my accident, I was using a micro jig push block. I think I wonder if that's what they're talking about with push pad. That's how I would take it.
I don't know. I would need Gerald to tell me, because I don't know. Do you mean like the gripper?
Yeah, that's what I was using. Which honestly, just my personal opinion, I'm not a huge fan of. Mainly because like the grippy part gets dust on it, and I feel like it can slip too easily, personally. But that's not what happened. I still use it, but the long push stick, the stock push stick that comes with the saw, I don't like either. But but yeah, I should have. So it's really common if I challenge people, look at people's YouTube videos. It's really common to use whether you're using a push pad or a push stick, and you're supported. So looking at the table saw, you're supporting what's between the fence and the blade, right? A lot of people do that. And if you're cutting like strips or cutting from like smaller boards from a larger board, it's really important to make sure that the left side of the blade is supported as well. And so mine wasn't. I was only supporting the right side. And so what happens when you're pushing that, like we all do, when you're pushing the right side of the blade through, your cutoff is going to stop as soon as it clears that blade, the front side of the blade, right? Because it cut all the way through it. And usually you can take your push stick or push block and knock that piece away. I guess the safest way to do it, for me to do it, would be to turn the saw off, grab that piece, and then reset everything up. But when you're cutting 20 pieces, shutting off your saw 20 times and starting it up really doesn't sound appealing, but neither does cutting your finger. But anyways, my point being is that's where I got in danger, was when the left side did not clear the blade. It stopped right in the front of it, and I grabbed it to reset and cut the next one. But yeah, I agree. I like I see a gripper is a push pad. Yeah.
All right. Andy, do you mind answering one more question? Then I'll let you go.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Last question, everyone. Due to space, 13 by 13 foot shop, my instinct is to buy a job site saw. Do you recommend to wait and get a cabinet saw, or do you think I can accomplish all with a job site saw?
Space is a premium. I would say if you are going to be using it frequently, I would go for the job site saw. Or sorry, I would go for the cabinet saw. So if it's something that you're going to be using multiple times a week and not just like, once every 6 months, like for a random home project, you can get by with a job site saw then. But I didn't realize this. I used a job site saw for like 2 years. So obviously it'll do the trick. But jumping to a cabinet saw, like I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like it's so much more solid, so much more rigid. It's so much quieter. And so I would be willing to sacrifice the space difference between the job site saw and the cabinet saw if it was something I was going to use on a regular basis.
I think that's a good recommendation, especially RH Harley guy. If you have that dedicated space. I mean, I have a job site saw, as you know, but I have to roll it out of the way because most of the time I have to roll it into the driveway to use it because of limited space. Yeah. But the more stable the saw, especially depending on the size of the cuts, and usually you can get a better fence and everything with a cabinet saw.
Yeah, better fence. I was amazed at how like the sound. Like I didn't ever think. I just thought that's how like a job site saw. That's how they all sounded, right? But so after my accident, I bought a saw stop, not a cabinet saw, and it would have been. I tell everybody, it would have been more cost effective to do it before I had an accident than afterwards. But I think honestly, I paid for my saw stop, and I'm not sponsored by them in any way. But I think if someone considers themselves a woodworker and a woodworking business, I really think that everybody should have that technology in their shop. And that's coming from a person that had a job site saw and cut their fingers on it. So, I mean, take it for what, for what it is. But that's just my opinion. So.
Yep. All right. Real quick, next week, folks, we've got a true entrepreneur, Dylan from Woodbrew, the channel Woodbrew, and Dylan and Molly. I think Dylan's going to be the one to join us. They have over 150,000 subscribers. They'll be with us next week on the show. So I hope that you will join us. Andy, any last words for your fans out there?
Oh, well, first of all, like I said at the beginning, thank you for having me. Yes, that's why I replied so quickly. I saw that email. I'm like, yeah, awesome. But I would say one of the first things that we talked about was CNC, since I'm the CNC guy. Don't be intimidated. And if you need anything at all or need a recommendation, don't hesitate to reach out. I've got a lot of content on my channel as well, and a lot of playlists that one in particular that says it's titled So You're Thinking About Buying a CNC. So I put all those videos in one playlist for that exact reason, for someone, if they're thinking about it, just the things to think about. But there's tons of resources out there, and it's great to live in this time where we have this technology available to us. It's just fantastic. So
thank you, Andy. You are a great guest, and I really appreciate you coming on. To everyone watching, you are the best audience on YouTube. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you next week. But right now, my wife's calling. I got to go.
There ain't another girl like her in the city. No, she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. I don't know why I feel this way, but I'm the ride she's driving insane. you know you oughta pump the brakes? I can't tell you why don't you let it go. I'm the line and if finally I'ma let you know you're somewhere in between my lanes. Hey, you know there ain't another girl like her in the city. Yeah, yeah, you know she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. I can't believe I rode so long with this whole time you riding me wrong. Don't you know you oughta take a risk, try your best, give it to me straight, and don't deny or reply, I don't wanna wait. We're at the end of the road, it's time to let go of everything. There ain't another girl like her in the city. No, no, you know she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. So leave me alone before I end it up here. On the phone with another reason to be had. One night for a while. This is where I leave. You don't have to speak. There's no room for goodbyes or desperate lies between the teeth. That's just how it goes. Everybody knows there's no room for your games. And I remain. There ain't another girl like her in the city. Yeah, I know, you know she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. So leave me alone before I end it up here. On the phone with another reason to be had. One night for a while. There ain't another girl, ain't another girl, ain't another girl. There ain't another girl, ain't another girl, ain't another girl.
Saw that there was a gap in the market.
I do think it's important that, as much as I'm not really a fan of saying having the avatar behind the camera, I do think it helps to imagine that you're actually talking to somebody who will be watching the video. Sometimes it's easy to forget that you see numbers of people watching, but you forget that these are actual people watching your video on their phone or on their TV or wherever. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.